Hey, I have reached the final talk through of a mission for the Danish nationals in the preliminary pack. This mission is a custom mission designed by Christian Lyngman, our very own Christian, who has written this mission called Dust Up. Now, it sounds very complicated when you read it, and that's because the actual board itself is a bit different. The mission itself is not very complicated. Think of it as a combination of sectors and key positions-ish. You have the sectors of the board. You choose a sector each. You roll off and you choose a sector. Then, each player places an objective in their own sector and in their opponent's sector. And then the opponent does the same. So there are two objectives in each sector. These objectives cannot be within 12 of each other. And that's it. That's all the rules there is. So, and each objective is worth 3 victory points by the end of the game. So, basically, you are going to try and conquer an objective that you yourself have placed in the opponent's zone. So you might place the objective that you want close to the middle, whereas the enemy might place the objective in their own zone that they are placing right by the edge of their board, right in their deployment zone, right up against their board, right? There is no outflank, but there are reserves here. So you place your units by dice in bag, and you place them in your sector. They can't be within 12 of the 8 inches of the center of the board. And you can't deploy, let's see again, what is it Christian has written? You have to deploy half of their force rounding down. Half your force rounding down. And then all of the units are in dice and bag. Although you are allowed to use forward deployment. No, you're not allowed to use forward deployment. No hidden setup or forward deployment allowed. Sorry. Which again is different from sectors, right? Interesting one. So the first choice you have is, where do you want those objectives to be? You can even use your own objective to push where the enemy can place their objective in your zone to certain places, right? Because they can't be within 12 of your objective. So that's an interesting thought where you can sort of push around a bit. Now, here comes the last bit. Your reserves are not coming into your own sector. They are coming from the opposite corner, from 18 inches of the opposite corner. And that's both sides, both the long edge and the short edge, 18 inches from in both directions. That is where your reserves can come in. Which sort of give you a chance for an outflank. You can sort of place your objective where you can reach it 18 inches from your edge of the board. So if you place it like, right, my neutral zone is there, my deployment zone is over here, right? So I know my reserves are coming from that corner. And I'm placing an objective in the enemy's deployment zone. I might place it right over there, right? Along the center line, as close to the center line as possible, because I know there's 18 inches up here and then I can go and capture that objective with my reserves. Otherwise, coming in from that edge, 18 inches, it's going to be a long trek back into your deployment zone. So from the start of this scenario, your force is split in two. A half that can attack and a half that needs to be able to defend. And you need to think about your force in that regard. If you're going to play this scenario, you need to be able to think, what am I going to use to defend? Will that be enough? And what am I going to use to attack from reserves? That's my first thing. That is my first thought for how to use that. Another thing you can do is you can ignore everything I just said and then play it straight on. Like have the weaker elements of your army in reserve, the things that won't really do anything in reserve, and then just push on ahead straight into your opponent's zone, and then try to run your reinforcements into your own deployment zone at the end. So you start with all your force on the board and then cross through the center and into the opponent's zone. That's another way you can play this. But that would mean that instead of deploying your objective out along the edge, you're deploying it as close to the center as possible, because you want to reach that objective, right? It's worth 3 victory points. Now, the kill points in this scenario, because there are also kill points, but they work in a different way than you usually count kill points. Instead of 1 kill point per dice that the enemy loses, you only get 1 kill point per 2 unit that the enemy uses. So half the amount of kill points, but you can still win by taking in kill points, right? Especially if there's if it's a close game along objective lines, then the kill points can be the deciding factor. And I think you should think about that while doing this. So a lot to think about with this scenario. One, it's a different way of playing it. The reserves come in from a different place. The objectives are placed in a different way. And your kill points are calculated in a different way as well. I think it's healthy to rethink what it is that happens sometimes. So I hope we get to play this for the Danish nationals. Let's see what the draw pulls out of the bag. I'm going to live draw. I'm going to physically take the missions and fold them up and put them into a bag, and then pull out the missions, the 5 missions that we're going to play. Right. See you soon at the nationals. Cheers.